We begin in Taiwan, where U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has praised the country for being one of the freest societies in the world as she addressed the self-ruled island's parliament during her visit that has infuriated Beijing. Ms. Pelosi also met with Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen in the capital Taipei on Wednesday. The U.S. Speaker has now left Taiwan after the brief but controversial visit. We have more in this package.
U.S. House Speaker's provocative visit to China's Taiwan region is an outright farce, and those who play with fire will come to no good end, Chinese State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi said on Wednesday. Wang, in an interview with China Central Television on the sidelines of an Asian foreign ministers meeting in Cambodia's capital city of Phnom Penh, under the guise of democracy, said the U.S. is infringing on China's sovereignty.
Should be penalized.
He thanked Ms. Pelosi for her concrete actions to support Taiwan and said the island will not back down in the face of heightened military threats. The visiting U.S. House praised Taiwan for being one of the freest societies in the world.
It is such a high honor to receive the Order of the Propitious Clouds with special grand cordon from you. We are so proud of your leadership, a woman president in one of the freest societies in the world. It's great immense admiration for your leadership and great personal humility that I accept this award. Humility because I accept it not for me only, but for our members of Congress who are so instrumental in all that you said about our accomplishments together. Democrats and Republicans, House and Senate, both sides of the aisle, united in our support for Taiwan. This time I am so excited to receive this award on behalf of the United States Congress, as I said, is just unwavering. The response that we had to our visit was so positive from our colleagues. I look forward to displaying this award in the Speaker's office, or wearing it there, right? Thank you, Madam President.
Pelosi had departed Taiwan after her 1991 first visit to Tiananmen Square 28 years ago.
And back to our coverage of U.S. Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. We're joined by global affairs analyst Kash Ononuju to look at the implication of this visit for the U.S., China, and Taiwan. I'm good to have you join us.
Thank you for having me.
This is a very brief but controversial visit. It has generated a lot of controversy, not just in the U.S., Taiwan, and China as well. It's become a talking point around the world. As brief as it is, do you see this as a breakaway from the One China policy, or is this just a symbolic visit?
Well, you know, since the Kuomintang set up government in the island nation of Taiwan, the U.S. has not wavered in its insistence that Taiwan be recognized as an autonomous society. The One China policy has been wet, but the U.S. also has to now go away from only me, the Goliath, has the capacity to recognize Taiwan and broaden Taiwan's recognition by other nations across the world. The me alone policy could turn out to become a really sticking problem between the US and China. If you think that Taiwan should become an independent nation, broaden your capacity so that the support and this kind of visit can occur from more countries. But because of China's tremendous weight and strength and influence, it's been able to frighten off lesser endowed countries. You know, the US 7th Fleet is massive in the Pacific coast, and I believe that's why America cannot be dictated to by the Chinese. If the issues about Taiwan had not yet been resolved peacefully, the US will continue to do things like this. I don't think it was controversial. Yes, there was a lot of Chinese fury, but then it's not today. This has been well since the creation of the Taiwan, this is the price China pays for its revolution that got the Kuomintang to go to set up Taiwan. For it to be able to resolve it, it has to show better ways than trying to use violence or force or threats. Threats won't do it. So Mrs. Pelosi going in makes a lot of sense, but the U.S. has to rise above that and engage more of its international partners to also embrace Taiwan if Taiwan is to survive on the long term.
But how do you see this playing out overall for U.S. interest in the Asia Pacific, as well as the U.S.-China relations?
The U.S. and China relations is cast in history. The U.S. has come to the end of its reign of 240 years, and we can see the power clicking back to the Pacific Rim, and China seems to become the real big elephant. Russia is not a United States problem, no. U.S. future problem is China. And so a lot will come into it, including the build-up to arm themselves in nations, in weapons. The U.S. will want to keep Okinawa and also keep Taiwan, because it currently has Okinawa, it has Guam, so it will also keep Taiwan as a military base. I think the Chinese will look at Taiwan on the long term, the same way the Japanese have come to accept Okinawa. It is a mistake that cost us things. So I know that the U.S. is deepening its problems and anxiety and its hysteria about China's resurgence. I foresee more of this kind of point. I foresee Taiwan becoming another Guam, becoming another Okinawa on the long term. The U.S. would not give it up. It's not going to do that in the short term. Not with the resurgence.
We can also say, just to jump in, because I want to stay on the point you just raised. Sorry to interrupt you. You said the U.S. will not give it up. China doesn't look like it also wants to give it up. We've seen the rhetoric coming from China, also talking about military involvement. 21 warplanes flew into Taiwan's air defense zone from China. We've also heard reports of sea exercises. How far do you think China will go, or do you think would there be escalation of tension?
Oh, yes, the tensions will continue to escalate because China's play in the South China Sea and across the other parts of the Pacific, as you've seen, the issues about the island. It's the way that Japan, Korea, and others are getting very jittery. The ramblings from North Korea, of course, supported by China to a very large extent. So all that will contribute to make the Pacific Rim a very tense period. And have you seen the United States has gone back to Brisbane, Australia, the original founding place of its 7th Fleet before it was moved from Brisbane down towards Guam, Okinawa, and the other places. So its return back into Australia tells you it does believe that for a very long time, China and its activities will force the United States to make the Pacific Rim very tense in a very long time to come. I don't see any slowing that, no. China is the new Russia. China presents a strong threat to the United States economically because we have come to the end of the 240-year cycle at which the U.S. rise as king of the world will begin to wane. And as it wanes and China grows stronger, you will see the friction. That's why I said Russia is not U.S. problem. The problem U.S. has is China. And the crisis will only exacerbate. It will not calm down because a lot is going on in the Pacific Rim, and the United States is there. Nowhere else does it have more destroyers, more seagoing capabilities than in its Asian operations. And that's why you see the 7th Fleet is still as monstrous as it is. And now they are linking up with Australia and the United Kingdom. That makes an alliance deep on the Pacific Rim. And I think for a long time to come, the friction between the US and China will grow more to not just include only Taiwan, but it also will include the Chinese activities in the island. As you're beginning to see, a lot of his neighbors are complaining. The only guarantor for stability that they have is the United States. So the US will stay engaged in its activities in Okinawa, in Taiwan, in Guam, and of course, now, as you've seen, in Brisbane, Australia. So that means the US will now mark an increased activity within the Pacific Rim. It's not anything that will be very gentle.
Well, I'm sure global affairs analysts like yourself will continue to keenly observe things that are the developments in that region. Thank you so much for talking to us, global affairs analyst Catch Ononoju.
Thank you for having me.